Israel's former national security minister, who resigned in opposition to the ceasefire deal, has slammed the return of Palestinians to northern Gaza. Itamar Ben-Gvir says the opening of the Netzrim corridor and the entry of tens of thousands of Gazans into the northern Gaza Strip are images of Hamas's victory and another humiliating part of the reckless deal. This is not what complete victory looks like. This is what complete surrender looks like. We must return to war, he said, and destroy. All right, let's bring in Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst, joins us from here in Doha. Marwan, good to see you there. So what's your sense of where we're at with this now? We have the sense of jubilation for sure with all these people returning to the north. But to what? To what materially and to what future?
Well, actually, it seems to be more of an emotional roller coaster. You see joy, but you see despair and suffering. You see hope, but you see pessimism. You see people celebrating, and you see people mourning. So it's quite the day. You see people returning, but return to what? What future is waiting for them? And so on and so forth. And it's that same day, by the way, where there was an emotional roller coaster somewhere else in Auschwitz. The 80th anniversary of the Holocaust. And there, unfortunately, somewhere using the memory of the Holocaust, of the horrible crime against the Jews in Europe, in order to justify some of the crimes carried by the Israeli government, carrying another genocide against the Palestinian people. So all in all, today was a very, very tough day. And yes, it was a historical day, especially watching the Grand March of Return, as Palestinians, basically for the first time in such huge numbers. I think it was almost 300,000 people today at the return. And I think that is considered somewhat of a setback for many Israelis watching Hamas and watching people return and so on and so forth. A lot of Israelis thought they got rid of Palestinians somehow, they pushed them down south. But clearly, Palestinian resilience, Palestinian steadfastness, despite the destruction and the death, is quite astounding. And it's so much so that although the Palestinians are not really much victors in this war, they certainly have not been vanquished.
Indeed, extraordinary pictures we've been watching. What about what Ben-Gvir had to say, there's need to return to war, to destroy? How much volume does he have now in Israel? And what is Benjamin Netanyahu likely to do?
I think now he's a bit of in the minority. I think he doesn't just want some of the Palestinian people to die. He wants all the Palestinian people to die. He doesn't want some of Palestine or some of Gaza to be destroyed. He wants all of it. So that's Ben-Gvir. He really represents that part of the Israeli society that is fanatical, ultra-nationalist, and basically criminal. And then there's the Smotrich. And by the way, because we somehow, in Al Jazeera and elsewhere, we use their name interchangeably, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and so on and so forth, because they are also coalition partners. But there's a difference between them. Ben-Gvir represents that across the board throughout Israel of very fanatical, extreme right-wing activists that support him. Smotrich have a very particular support base within the settler community in the West Bank and Jerusalem. So Smotrich have a very particular set of people, and that's why he's still in government. Because he doesn't care about Gaza, really. He cares about the West Bank. He would like to use Gaza, like Netanyahu would like to use Gaza, in order to extract from the United States concessions and recognition of annexations in the West Bank. So this Israeli government is probably heading out of Gaza. It's going to implement a ceasefire with the blessing and the support of the United States in order to be rewarded in the West Bank, in order to annex huge territories in the West Bank. Because while Gaza has been the strategic challenge, the West Bank is the strategic reward.
And does that tie into Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, heading off to Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to meet with the Crown Prince there? How do you see that, especially in the light of what Donald Trump said about a Gaza clear-out?
By the way, what he said about the Gaza clearout, it's, I think, for any businessman, that would be what they call the opening bid, right? He just threw it out. I'm not sure he thought it through. It's not like, for example, kicking out all the illegal immigrants from the United States. They've been talking about it for years. This one, probably someone gave him a call, told him something, he repeated it. It's not serious. What is serious is that he wants, or does not want rather, Biden's wars, whether it's in Gaza or in Ukraine. He doesn't want to fight Biden's wars. He might fight his own wars, but he doesn't want to fight Biden's wars. So I think he's going to turn Biden's war into his own peace, a la Abraham Accord. So he's going to try to use Gaza and the annexations in the West Bank in order to convince the Saudis and others to join into the Abrahamic Accord, and he's going to become more or less, as he wishes to be, a Nobel Peace Prize winner like Obama was, and so on. So I think what we're going to see Witkoff and Rubio and Trump do is try to utilize Netanyahu's maximalist demands from the Palestinian, and notably from the Palestinian Authority, in order to turn that into normalization of relations and regionalizing either the crisis or the solution to the crisis. Unfortunately, Nick, I think this will happen at the expense of the Palestinian cause, at the expense of the Palestinian statehood. Because for the time being, many of those who would normalize under American pressure would do it for a promise of a Palestinian state. That's not going to do it, because the Israelis have already legislated a law in the Israeli parliament that says there will be no Palestinian state. Mm-hmm. So the Israelis are quite adamant into annexing more Palestinian territories, cutting off the Gaza Strip, and try to normalize relationship with more Arab countries with the support of the Trump administration.
And Marwan, UNRWA, the UN refugee agency, they're coming up to their deadline of the Israeli ban, and that's just when Palestinians, of course, need help more than ever.
For a criminal government like the Israeli government, with a criminal prime minister and a former criminal defense minister, who are sought after by the International Criminal Court, and who's been basically, for all practical matters, indicted by the International Court of Justice for genocide, for them to be blaming and attacking UNRWA for being in bed with terror or whatever, it is just incredibly, it's just astounding, and it's in and by itself criminal to call a UN agency that's been working for 7 decades, not just, by the way, to help the Palestinians. Up until 1952, it was helping the Israelis after Israel's independence. So UNRWA is an established United Nations agency, and it has huge credibility, and it has huge use, and it's incredibly effective, especially in places like Gaza. And moving forward for any form of normalization of life in Gaza, any form of rebuilding, any form of construction is going to require UNRWA. Without UNRWA, there's going to be no going back to any sort of normalcy of sort to pre-October 7. That's one. Two, by trying to kill UNRWA, they're trying to kill the refugee issue. And there is more than 4 million Palestinian refugees today. And trying to sort of, ignore that, trying to bury that by burying UNRWA, it's not going to work. It's only going to set back the process of reconstructions, and it's going to hurt the Palestinians without benefiting anyone. So I think the international community, notably the Europeans and others, who now awaken to the idea that Israel is only using the whole criminalizing process against UNRWA in order to get rid of the refugee issue, for them to go back and support UNRWA. The Arab countries also need to do that, because moving forward in the next few months and years, we are going to need UNRWA.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right, Marwan, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for that. Marwan Bishara speaking to us from here in Doha. Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.